This is Eddie Hearn, Matchroom Boxing. You're watching Sporting Icons. You don't need to be anywhere else.
Now, there's been quite a few rumblings over the past year or so that Dana White, the president of the UFC, is looking to make a move into the world of boxing. And anybody who wants to get into boxing, promotions, managers, all that kind of thing, and want to put on shows, listen, they got my vote, that's for sure. Now, he said that he already has a good relationship with Haymon and Eddie Hearn. He hasn't met Bob Arum and Oscar De La Hoya, but of course he's willing to work with all these promoters. And I'll get into his statement in a second, but the most important part for me is something that he says in this statement, which is that he will not recognise the sanctioning bodies, as in the WBC, WBO, IBF, WBA, etc. So, for me, I think that's interesting news, very, very interesting, because his idea is that in the UFC, they have the UFC Championship and the best will fight the best. There's no mucking around, there's no politics with sanctioning bodies, all that kind of thing. So that's pretty much his reason. And we're going to break down some of the pros and the cons of what it is that he's saying. So anyway, let's get straight into Dana White's statement. I've met with literally everybody in the sport except for Bob Arum and Oscar De La Hoya. Everybody is willing to work together and everybody is interested. I'm not acting like I know everything and I'm the guy who's going to save boxing. I don't know crap. But what I do know is the system and the model is broken and it needs to be fixed. I think that you'll be watching it on UFC Fight Pass and we'll have a television deal too. I have a really good relationship with Haymon. I think Haymon's brilliant. I like some of the moves that he's made and some of the things that he's done, and I can guarantee you that I'll be working with Haymon. I said some things about Anthony Joshua that I liked him. He's a good-looking kid. He's got great energy. I think Eddie Hearn took me the wrong way, like I was going to take a run at his guy and all that kind of stuff. So I think we kind of got off on the wrong foot. Then I met him. We sat down. We talked face-to-face, and we had a great meeting. And Eddie actually toured the facilities out here, and I like Eddie Hearn, so I definitely think Eddie Hearn and I could be working together. As far as the sanctioning body goes, everybody knows what needs to happen. The way I get around it is I don't recognise the sanctioning bodies. The UFC belt is sanctioned by nobody. You know why the belt is credible? Because the best keep fighting the best. So that's Dana White's statement. Now, as I said, it's all very well that he's going to have a good relationship with Eddie Hearn and Haymon, etc. at the minute, but once he makes a move into the boxing, then he'll quickly realise that all promoters, all networks, they're in it for themselves, okay? So while they may be willing to help him out for little bits here and there, and as I said, he's going to be having his own fight pass and, of course, his own television deal as well. So he's going to need his own stable of fighters, okay? And where's he going to get these fighters from? Because most fighters, especially the top end, already have some kind of deal in place. If you look at the Matchroom fighters, of course, they have deals with Matchroom, which means they fight on DAZN and Sky Sports. Same with Bob Arum and his Top Rank with ESPN. And of course with Frank Warren with BT Sport and ESPN and so on. Whereas the PBC, Haymon, of course, these guys do have deals with Showtime and Fox Sports. But the PBC fighters are not tied in to contracts. Even though there's something going on there where Haymon does have a very, very good control of the fighters. So, but legally, they're not bound to a contract. So in theory, Dana White could come in and take some of the fighters. And there's nothing in the world that Haymon can do about it. Which, his great relationship with Haymon right now, if he does that, it's going to get a little bit tempered, isn't it? So going forward, he's going to realise that there is a lot of politics going on. So is he going to be successful? I hope so. I hope all promoters and everything are successful. Of course I do. But where's he going to get the fighters from? As I said. Now, moving on to the sanctioning bodies. Now, the sanctioning bodies are most boxing fans' pain in the backside. Because we know with sanctioning bodies, there are politics. They will rank certain fighters in certain positions based on their relationship with the managers and the promoters. So they will rank certain fighters in certain positions ahead of other ones. And if you look up and down all the sanctioning bodies, you can't agree with any of them, can you? Because some of them, you've got Haymon and the PBC. These guys have virtually boycotted the WBO because the WBO have a very good relationship with Bob Arum and Frank Warren, whereas WBO will rank Frank Warren and Bob Arum's fighters quite highly up and down their weight classes through the WBO, but don't really rate the PBC fighters, Al Haymon fighters. Okay, it's very, very clear to see. But for Al Haymon to have a bit of an issue with that, I understand it. But he's been very, very two-faced because he has favoritism from the WBC. Look up and down the WBC rankings. There's so many PBC fighters there, it's unreal. So again, it's very, very two-faced. And the WBO, they refuse to rank a lot of the PBC fighters because of their relationship with the WBC. They see it as a conflict of interest and vice versa. So for me, Al Haymon and the WBO, both of these guys are very, very two-faced with it. But that's the sanctioning bodies. So for Dana White to come in and start saying how he's not going to recognise any of the sanctioning bodies, he's going to hit a stumbling block because fighters want to be a champion. For me, for most of you guys, there are too many belts. Far too many. But a fighter isn't going to complain about that, are they? Because we just look at, say, the WBA. You've got the WBA Super Champion, WBA Regular Champion, WBA Interim Champion, WBA Gold Champion. And that's 4 recognised champions in any one division. That's way too many. That's ridiculous. And of course, they've also got the internationals and they've got the intercontinentals. And same with the WBO in that as well. They've got the WBO Europeans and the IBF do as well. And the WBC, they have their Super Champion, then they have the Interim Champion, and they have international champions and all kinds of other champions, and they keep creating these belts for these special Cinco de Mayos and all these kind of things, and it gets a little tedious. Why do they do that? Money, sanction fees, okay? Every time one of their fighters who holds one of their belts fights, they get a sanction fee. It's all about money. It's business. There's nothing in the world that anybody can do about it. I mean, if they just give up all the titles and just have one title in each weight division, these guys ain't going to make too much money, are they? And let's be honest, where there's business, there's corruption, okay? So, ultimately, ideally, for Dana White to be correct with this one, and I do like his thinking and I do like his philosophy on it, where the best should fight the best. But if you don't control the PBC fighters, if you don't control the Eddie Hearn fighters, the Frank Warren, the Bob Arums, and whoever else, then you cannot make the best fight the best. If they're not fighting on your platform, on your network, then you can't ever do that. How are you going to make Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury? Deontay Wilder versus Dillian White? Lomachenko versus Gervonta Davis? Terence Crawford versus Errol Spence? How are you going to make that if these guys are not on your network? It's impossible. So I think that he might be a little short-sighted as far as that goes. Hey, maybe long-term. Listen, he's got the money, and there has been rumours that he could actually take over the Premier Boxing Champions, the PBC, Al Haymon. He could actually take that over. And if he does, then yes, it's a very, very good step in the right direction. But if that happens, the WBC are going to be well out of favour. The WBC rank and put on title fights for most of the PBC fighters, much like the WBO do with Bob Arum and Frank Warren. And Eddie Hearn, Oscar De La Hoya, they don't really get favoritism too much from any of the sanctioning bodies. They do get the odd sweet deal once in a while, of course they do, with the WBA or the IBF, for example. But ultimately, there's nothing there that really stands out. But with Oscar De La Hoya, with Eddie Hearn and a few other promoters, these guys are pretty much frozen out of the WBC and the WBO. Again, look up and down the rankings. It's not difficult to work out exactly what's going on. So for him, listen, is he going to create his own stable belt where his best fighter will fight the best fighter and so on and so on? Maybe. And if he does that with the PBC, and if he does end up taking over the PBC and actually working with Al Haymon, because it does sound like that could well be the plan. And if he does do that, and he just boycotts all sanctioning bodies, again, listen, it's a great idea, but I don't know if all promoters will go along with it. Will all fighters go along with it? Because that's the only way it's going to work. Because unfortunately for the WBC, the WBA, the IBF, WBO, and even the IBO to a lesser extent, they don't report to anybody. So if they do something that ain't right, who do you go see about it? Who's the overall boxing authority? There isn't one. There just isn't one, is there? So these guys can make up their own rules, twist their rules, rewrite the rules, and do whatever it is that they want to do to fit their own narratives. So as far as Dana White's concerned, yes, it's a great idea in principle, but will it work going forward? I have absolutely no idea. But either way, good luck to Dana White. I hope he comes in and he creates a whirlwind. But ultimately, once he's in boxing, he starts to see the politics and there's like a lot of resistance. Maybe he's going to fall into the same bracket as some of these guys where they just want in-house fights. They just want to have favoritisms and all that kind of thing. But anyway, listen, the article is in the description box. Go give it a read for yourself. Come to your own thoughts. Make sure you drop them below. If you are not subscribed, please make sure you do so. And I'll catch you all on the very next video.